Welcome to the Lion's Share podcast, where we break down today's most impactful research and bring fresh insights from the academic frontier straight to you.
All right, let's unpack this. For those of you already tracking global trends, it's pretty clear that human demography is undergoing some massive shifts.
That's right.
And today, our deep dive into recent research isn't just confirming these shifts. It's really revealing, I think, the profound strategic imperatives they're creating for corporate innovation, for technology, market strategy.
Exactly. It's like an underlying current, you know, reshaping pretty much everything. Product design, whole national economy.
So it's not just stats anymore.
No, what's really fascinating in these sources is how we're moving beyond just the raw numbers. Population changes aren't like background noise. They are the fundamental forces. They're driving both these huge challenges, but also maybe incredible opportunities across global markets, workforces, everything.
Right.
So we're going to explore how these shifts are redefining economic landscapes, labor markets, consumer behavior, and crucially, what that means for how we think about strategic corporate innovation.
And technology adoption, marketing.
All of it for the next few decades, really.
Okay, so our mission here is essentially to synthesize the big insights from these reports. We're focusing on that central question. How are these global demographic shifts, falling fertility, aging populations, increasing diversity, how are they redefining economies, labor, consumers?
And the strategic implications for innovation, tech, marketing globally.
It's not just a demographic issue anymore. It's a core business imperative.
Absolutely. And to set the stage, the data points to some truly, seismic shifts, things already well underway.
Like fertility rates.
Exactly. Globally, fertility rates have just plummeted. They're now below what's called the replacement rate in the majority of countries.
And the replacement rate is, about 2.1 children?
Yeah, roughly 2.1 per family. It's the number needed just to keep a population stable, replacing both parents, essentially. And the sources are clear. Most nations are below that line. That's a primary driver of long-term population decline.
Wow, so decline is baked in for many places.
It looks that way. The IMF, for instance, forecasts global population growth will slow basically to zero by 2100. And think about this. The world's average age set to increase by 11 years between 2020 and the end of the century.
11 years older on average.
Yeah. McKinsey actually describes it as turning population pyramids into obelisks, a really striking image.
So we're talking about a world that's not just getting older, but dramatically older.
Dramatically. And this aging trend is hitting the advanced economies first, what the sources call first wave regions. Europe, North America.
Like Germany. Didn't their workforce peak ages ago?
It did. Germany's working age population peaked back in 1986. But, and this is important, don't think this is just a developed world issue.
Okay.
Emerging economies, the later wave regions like India, they're set to follow the same path, maybe within 1 or 2 generations.
So it's coming everywhere, just at different speeds.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're seeing what Brookings calls a diversity explosion, particularly clear in the U.S.
Right, where growth is driven by minorities.
Overwhelmingly, especially among younger people. And this also means a big shift in the global population balance, more towards those later wave regions.
Sub-Saharan Africa, India?
Yep. They'll account for a growing share of global labor, global consumption in the years ahead. It's this complex mix, aging, diversity, shifting economic gravity.
Okay, so how do these big, complex shifts actually hit businesses, innovators? Let's walk through the impacts, starting with the economy.
Right, the economic ripple effects. The research predicts significantly slower GDP per capita growth.
How slow?
For those first wave regions, maybe around 0.4% annually by 2050, which is really slow.
And that's mainly because there are fewer working-age people.
Largely, yes. Fewer working-age people supporting everyone else. And that shrinking workforce creates what the reports call an increasing senior gap.
The senior gap. Explain that a bit more.
It's where the consumption needs of older populations really start to outstrip their income from labor.
Ah, okay. So they're consuming more than they're earning through work.
Exactly. And that puts immense pressure on public finances, pensions, healthcare.
Got it. Any numbers on that gap?
Yeah, for North America, it's projected to rise from 26% to 34% of total labor income by 2050.
Wow, from quarter to over a third.
And some places are hit harder, like Spain. Their GDP per capita growth could be reduced by 0.8% annually just from this age mix effect. The sheer scale of the potential financial burden is quite striking.
That is staggering. So given that pressure, are businesses actually getting ahead of this, or are most still, playing catch up because it feels urgent?
It's definitely a mix. I'd say many are still reacting. But the more forward-thinking companies see there's really only one sustainable path forward.
Which involves?
Two main things. First, increasing labor intensity. That means getting more older workers, more women into the workforce, keeping them engaged longer.
Okay, more participation.
Second, and this is crucial, dramatically boosting productivity growth. McKinsey really hammers this point. Productivity is the most important lever here.
Through AI and automation, presumably.
That's a big part of it, yeah. In the very long term, sure, you can talk about smarter migration policies, maybe addressing fertility rates. But for corporate strategy now, the immediate push is towards new models, supporting older workers, flexible arrangements, continuous reskilling. That's key.
And that brings us right into the labor market itself. Huge shifts there too, right?
Absolutely, seismic shifts. The data suggests a dramatic rise of the, quote, senior workforce.
Meaning?
Workers aged 50 and older. They could contribute up to 37% of total hours worked in those first-wave economies by 2050.
37%. That's huge.
It is. Look at Japan today. 42% of hours worked already come from people 50 and older.
Wow. But it's not just about older workers, is it? We have all these generations together now.
Exactly. You've got these incredibly diverse, multi-generational workplaces.
Yeah.
Boomers, Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, all working side by side.
Each with their own styles, expectations.
Totally. And sometimes friction. Like the Janice Henderson research points out, millennials are now often middle managers. But they apparently often struggle with difficult face-to-face conversations. They might prefer digital communication, even for sensitive stuff. That creates challenges.
Okay, so this multi-generational thing, plus the rise of older workers.
Right.
What does that mean for innovation management, for talent strategy?
Well, it demands a complete rethink of HR, basically. Lifelong upskilling and reskilling programs. They go from nice to have to absolutely critical.
Like Singapore's skills future.
Exactly like that. And the IMF report had this fascinating point. Someone aged 70 today, in 2022, has roughly the same cognitive ability as a 53-year-old did back in 2000.
That's really interesting. It reframes aging potential.
It really does. It highlights this untapped potential, the capacity for continued contribution from older workers. But it also raises a big question for companies, doesn't it?
Which is,
Given these diverse generational preferences and this rise of the senior workforce, what innovative approaches to talent development and knowledge transfer can companies actually implement to effectively bridge these multi-generational divides? Foster collaboration, maximize productivity across all age groups.
yeah, how do you make that work smoothly? It's not just managing ages, it's managing different work philosophies, different communication styles.
Precisely.
Okay, so beyond the workforce, the analysis must also point to changing consumer behavior, right? New market opportunities.
Oh, definitely. We're seeing the unmistakable rise of the silver economy. That term is used explicitly in the sources.
The silver economy.
Yeah.
So products and services for older people.
Exactly. But it's a growing sophisticated demand. For healthcare, sure, but also leisure, assisted living services, all tailored for older consumers.
Like Best Buy's smart home tech for seniors, assured living, I think it's called.
That's a perfect example. Or look at Nestle Health Science. They pivoted pretty significantly from baby food towards senior nutrition. It's a huge and often, frankly, underserved market.
Makes sense. But it's not all aging everywhere, right?
No.
What about the younger populations?
Absolutely. While some regions are aging fast, you've got these growing youth populations in emerging markets. India, Nigeria, Indonesia. They're driving immense demand for totally different things. Education, technology, consumer goods.
So a real divergence in market needs globally.
And we're also seeing a big shift in overall consumption categories. More money on healthcare, less on education, relatively speaking.
Because of the age mix.
Exactly. Per capita healthcare consumption in the U.S., for example, projected to increase by 8% by 2050 just due to these age shifts. Education spending could drop by 7%.
That's a fundamental reallocation of spending.
Driven purely by demographics.
And it's not just age, right? You mentioned generations earlier. Their attitudes must matter too.
Hugely. Millennials, often called digital environmentalists, and Gen Z, the tech pioneers, they're driven by really strong ethical, sustainable values.
And they're more okay with AI.
Generally more optimistic about it, yeah. And this changes everything for marketing. It needs to be highly personalized, omni-channel, and speak to those values.
It also shapes product design itself, I guess.
No question. We mentioned Nestle. There's also Silvert's making adaptive clothing. Or even social innovations. Did you see that Jumbo supermarket in the Netherlands?
Oh, what does it do?
They introduced chat checkout lanes, just slower lanes where seniors, or anyone really, can have a chat with the cashier to combat loneliness.
Wow, that's quite something, addressing a social need directly.
Right. And it brings up a critical point for innovators. If consumption really is shifting hard towards healthcare and wellness for seniors in some places, and digital stuff for young people in others, what disruptive innovation opportunities does that create? Especially for startups or corporate ventures using tech like AI or IoT to bridge those needs?
Where can technology connect those dots? Yeah, that's key.
And technology, obviously, it runs through all of this. It's both an enabler and a disruptor.
So with older workers, for instance.
Well, take AI. The source is presented as potentially a huge boon, augmenting skills, extending careers, but also a threat, potentially displacing certain roles.
And different generations see it differently.
Yeah, older generations tend to be more cautious about AI's impact on jobs. Younger ones, generally more optimistic.
And things like digital transformation, e-commerce, they're just table stakes now.
Pretty much essential for reaching diverse customer segments, supporting remote work, which itself is partly driven by demographic preferences, right? Technology is really a primary lever for adapting here.
That's a great way to put it. Technology as a lever, it shifts the focus from just managing decline to actively finding growth, finding innovation.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of growth, let's touch on a key economic concept the sources bring up, the demographic dividend. Can you unpack that?
Sure. The demographic dividend is basically that sweet spot period when a country's working age population is growing faster than its dependent population, the kids and the elderly.
So more workers relative to dependents fuels growth.
That's the idea. But the sources, particularly McKinsey, they indicate this dividend is rapidly shrinking or even disappearing in most of those later wave regions now.
Except
The big exception is sub-Saharan Africa. But for places like India, their dividend is projected to drop significantly by 2050. From adding 0.7% to growth down to maybe 0.2%.
which goes back to your point about productivity.
Precisely. It makes productivity growth absolutely urgent to sustain economic expansion when that demographic tailwind fades.
Okay, let's pivot slightly towards critique. This body of research, it sounds incredibly comprehensive, a real bird's eye view.
It is. It really connects the dots between these massive demographic trends and their, multifaceted implications. It highlights the urgency for everyone advanced emerging economies to act.
And it gives concrete data, links macro trends to micro business strategies, HR, product development.
Yeah, the insights into generational characteristics alone are invaluable for talent managers, for marketers.
I agree the scope is impressive, but like any big analysis, it makes you ask deeper questions, doesn't it?
Always.
While the projections are based on current trends, UN scenarios, you have to wonder, what about black swan events? Or maybe unforeseen technological breakthroughs, like what if we get radical life extension or universal basic income tied to automation? Could that fundamentally throw these demographic models off?
That's a totally fair challenge. The models are extrapolations, and huge disruptions could change the game.
And building on that, a lot of the policy recommendations focus on boosting labor intensity, boosting productivity, get people working more, working smarter.
Right.
But how might changing societal values, such as around work-life balance, think Gen Z, millennials, how might that limit how effective those policies actually are in practice? People might just not want to work more hours, even if the economy needs it.
That's a really important moderating factor. We already see trends like German workers putting in fewer hours, the 4-day work week gaining traction. People's preferences could definitely push back against purely economic imperatives.
And that senior gap we talked about, the fiscal strain on governments, that feels like a ticking time bomb. Spain's deficit potentially increasing 4.5 times just due to demographics.
That's a massive concern.
So it leads you to think, are there truly innovative financial or social mechanisms we could explore beyond just raising taxes or cutting benefits, maybe things inspired by community care models or new kinds of retirement products? The old toolbox just feels inadequate.
It probably is inadequate for the scale of the challenge. We likely need some really creative thinking there, financially and socially.
So the implications here are huge for theory, for practice.
Absolutely vast. Theoretically, this deep dive just reinforces the need for dynamic interdisciplinary models. Economics, sociology, tech, marketing, they all have to talk to each other.
And practically, for managers listening.
Practically, managers need to embrace agile innovation. They need to invest heavily, continuously, in learning for these diverse workforces and develop products, services that are genuinely inclusive, adaptable to older markets, to younger markets, to diverse markets.
You can't afford not to have deep demographic forecasting in your long-term planning anymore.
Doom strategy without it. Yeah, that's basically flying blind at this point.
One more thought on generations. With millennials moving into middle management and Gen Z coming in as these tech pioneers, optimistic about AI, valuing sustainability, it raises another question for organizations.
Really?
What specific entrepreneurial initiatives could companies launch to really harness that tech savviness, that drive for sustainability? How do you build agile teams that leverage those strengths to anticipate these future demands?
That's about actively cultivating innovation from within, using those unique generational assets, not just managing differences, but leveraging them. Great point.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener? I think the central takeaway is crystal clear. Demographics are fast becoming destiny for business strategy.
Yeah, destiny might be strong, but it's a massive shaping force. The challenges are real depopulation, youth scarcity in some places, fiscal strain.
But they're matched by these immense opportunities, right? Often untapped. The silver economy, those burgeoning emerging markets, tech-driven solutions.
Definitely. And for practitioner scholars like you, this deep dive really underscores the need for strategic pivots that are proactive, empathetic, and definitely technologically informed.
It's not just about adapting anymore.
No, it's about anticipating, innovating, actively shaping the future by understanding these deep human population dynamics.
So as societies grapple with these really fundamental questions, who takes care of whom, and as individuals cite complex reasons, financial, fear, even reproductive challenges, for maybe not having the families they desire, we leave you with this thought.
What new societal social contracts might need to emerge? How might we redefine human prosperity, intergenerational responsibility in this totally unprecedented demographic landscape we're entering?
It's a profound question, something that demands our collective attention moving forward.
Thanks for tuning into the Lion's Share podcast. If you enjoyed today's discussion, share it with a friend and join us next time for more ideas worth talking about. We'll see you next time.